Welcome to Intuitive Connections, where spirituality and psychology meet to help you be your best and brightest self. I'm your host, Victoria Shaw, and in each episode, I'll help you to awaken your own inner wisdom, step into your power, and live a more divinely inspired life. You're here to let your inner light shine. Are you ready? Let's do this. So hello and welcome to Intuitive Connection. I'm your host, intuitive counselor and spiritual guide, Victoria Shaw. And today, I want to take some time to talk about our namesake topic, which is your intuition. This is a podcast about intuition, and it is at the foundation and the framework and the fabric. There's some good F words of everything that we talk about on the show. And I think sometimes it's not always clear how important intuition is to life, to all the different things that we talk about. So today I wanted to come back to our namesake topic. I wanted to talk about why I named this podcast Intuitive Connection, why I think intuition is the single best tool that you have for navigating all facets of your life. I want to talk a little bit about the different ways that we can use and sometimes abuse our inner wisdom. And I think I'm going to end by sharing a little bit about the way that our intuition plays with some of the other themes that we talk about on the show so often, like the law of attraction, and why these two things really go, and joy. That's another one that we talk about on the show a lot, happiness, how to feel good. Anyway, and how intuition, I think, is at the center of all things spiritual and how all these things go together. So that is the topic for today. And I have to share that this is not one of the episodes that I have prepared or scripted or thought about it all before sitting down in the microphone. So strap on your seatbelts. It actually came to me as I was starting to record something else. But I think it's a really, really important one. And I think it's good to come back when you have a podcast that's called Intuitive Connection. I think it's good periodically to come back and reflect on, that foundational topic that this podcast is all about. And some of you know my story, and I did an episode on it, already like a year and a half ago, a little while back, in discovering my own intuition or awakening my own intuition, because it was there all the time, my friends, and so is yours. Yours is there too. But for me, tapping into my intuition and starting to realize the gifts of my soul, which may be very different than yours, and also the kind of channeling abilities that I naturally came by and my ability to read people and all that good stuff. And that's what I lead with when I teach and, when I want to show off, because I like to think I'm kind of good at it. But it's really not the point, because we all have these soul-based gifts, and we can all learn to develop them more and more. But for me, intuition is not just a set of tools or a set of tricks that I can use to impress my friends. Sometimes it's fun to try to do that, but it's not the point. Intuition is a way of life. It's a way of life. It's a way of learning to follow, align, and listen to your higher self, your inner being, your North Star. And it is one of the single best tools that you have to start to live what I like to call a divinely inspired life, right? Living from that more soul-based perspective rather than doing what most of us do, which is getting lost and overwhelmed by all the humanness. Now, the humanness isn't bad. I love having that too. But I've learned that when I'm able to follow my intuition and use that as the primary guiding force in my life, when I learned to do that, everything in my life changed for the better. And the more I do that, the more delicious and delightful and enjoyable my life continues to become. So the guides are sticking in my sweet little brain right now. the example of Cactus Blossom Retreat. And some of you know, if you listen to enough of these episodes about Cactus Blossom Retreat, and if this is your first episode, I will refresh your memory or tell you anew. So Cactus Blossom Retreat is a property that I purchased upon moving to California in Escondido, California. And the retreat property was really an idea that just kind of popped into my head. Many people here, I have since learned, have wanted to do this their whole lives, and it's their dream. And it wasn't the case at all for me. Sorry to say, it was a random thought that popped into my head when I was looking through real estate listings and trying to decide if I wanted to be closer to the water or more inland on a bigger bit of property. And I had this random idea that, well, maybe I could do both if I made one a business. That was it. That was it. And since then, Cactus Blossom Retreat has been such an example of the power of listening to my intuition, even at times when my mind can't figure out what the heck it's supposed to do. And it continues to be that for me. It really does. And it's also a great example for me of how life really can be miraculous and beautiful and magical when you follow those nudges and let life surprise and delight you rather than trying to figure it all out, control it all, and, fit it all into some box of how you think it's supposed to go, which you may or may not be able to do, but it's not as delicious or delightful or as surprising or as exciting, I have to tell you, as my journey has been with Cactus Blossom and completely following my intuition. So, like I said, it was a random passing thought that I had when I was looking at properties, and everyone that I told it to seemed to take it very seriously, including my real estate broker. And, as some of you know, not to overshare, California real estate is really expensive. And it was a lot more expensive than I thought it was going to be. So when I got my feet on the ground and realized, how much it was going to be, the idea of having two properties seemed a little less feasible. And I spent most of my allotted budget, as it turns out, on the house that I live in, my main house, my main location here near the beach, right? So that required my first leap of faith because I made that decision. I made that choice, and I don't actually regret it at all. But it meant that my budget for the second property kind of needed to fall out of the sky, right? But the whisperings and longings didn't go away. And the nudges didn't go away. And the idea didn't go away. So I played with it. So I let it be there. So I continued to listen to it. And I followed the nudges every step of the way. And a lot of times, friends, too, it was in very much uncharted territory. For example, I had this random idea that I would have a retreat property. But at the time, I didn't really know this was a thing. I actually thought it was something I was making up myself, which is really funny because retreats are such a big deal right now and everyone sort of wants to go to them and do them. But in my mind, I wasn't aware of any of that at all. Okay, this wasn't my mind. It was just this idea that I had and how I'd use my property back in Connecticut, where I would invite clients for the day. And I had done one day retreat, half-day retreat, where everyone came and used my property. But even when I would see my clients, we would really use the space as part of the healing. And I would sometimes think it would be really cool, to have someone stay here for an extended period of time. I did not have the space or layout or interest in having someone in my actual home. But I do think that was starting to lay the groundwork in the idea that I had that created Cactus Blossom Retreat. But again, I didn't know retreat properties were a thing. I didn't know there was a high demand for properties in Southern California where people wanted to have retreats. I didn't know any of this. And I also didn't know how having this retreat center and having this property would be such a phenomenal catalyst for my building my community here in San Diego. That was also not an idea that I could have put into my very own mind, but it's worked out really miraculously. Some of my very best friends I have met because they do retreats, or another friend of mine who just happened to walk into my office used to manage high-end Airbnbs, or various things like that, or just chefs or yoga teachers or people in aligned fields. Having a retreat property has really helped me to develop my community. It really has, because it's just naturally brought me into contact with people that resonate and vibe with all the fun things that I want to do. So that was like a hidden benefit of following this nudge that I didn't even know about. But I also didn't even really know. True story, that retreats were a thing. And so, or that people, I ran into so many people that were like, oh, that's my dream to have a retreat property. I knew none of this. I simply blindly followed those nudges. Well, not so blindly, because, I was looking where I was going, but I was listening more deeply. And the guides say what I wasn't doing was listening too hard with my mind. My mind was there. The doubts were there. The questions were there. How are you going to come up with the money for this retreat center when you just spent all the money on your house, right? What the heck are you doing spending all this money, doing all these things, taking all these risks? Eek. So there was a lot of fear and a lot of mind-based chatter. Do not get me wrong. And I'm going to take a breath, because thinking about it is making me all anxious again. But usually, as nudges and whispers from the universe work, is that when we listen to them and when we trust in them and when we allow ourselves more and more to follow them, the result surprises and delights us in really magnificent ways. And that's been my experience here. And the other thing that was my experience in this particular case with Cactus Blossom was I had such a strong nudge, so many aligned signs that at a certain point, it was getting really, truly hard to ignore. And I don't know if I've told this story on the show before, but I don't think I have. So I started looking at properties, even though I wasn't sure where the money was going to come from or if this made a lot of sense, but the idea wasn't going away. And so I started looking for properties pretty much after I landed in San Diego and moved into my home here. And I would go on these wonderful outings with my fantabulous real estate broker, who I love, love, love so very much. And we would go on these little adventures and visit little places. And it was really fun. And I think it was fun for him too. I think he enjoyed those outings as much as I did, because he got to see all sorts of properties and places that he wouldn't see otherwise. However, there was always a little part of my mind that was like, we're going to look at properties, but like, I don't have to buy anything. And then one day, we drove up the driveway of the property that is now Cactus Blossom Retreat. And I knew as soon as I drove up that I had found the one. And we knew everything was going to go. We figured everything out. It was, I swear to you, it was the magic ticket. It was the place. And then I had to make the very difficult decision. Am I actually going to do this? And the signs were aligned. For example, I had asked to see dolphins as my sign that my move to California was aligned. And I've talked about that one a lot. But that one, the move to California, made a heck of a lot more sense to my mind. So even though some people might think that's a crazy thing to do, to move cross country, where you don't know anyone just because you feel like doing it, that made a lot more sense to my mind why I would be happy in Southern California. And people have said to me, even since I've been here, people look at me and they're like, wait, you're not a native to California? How can that be? You look so Californian. But the retreat property thing, less amenable to the sweet, resistant brain. But one of the signs that I had asked for in moving to California was dolphins. And I've told you probably all on the show the sweet story of, asking for dolphins, seeing dolphins everywhere except in the water. And, on the very last day when I packed up my things to, get ready to move to California and all those good things, when the deal was done, I did see dolphins splashing around outside of our apartment in Miami, and that was so powerful. Well, on the day and the weekend that I found Cactus Blossom, there were dolphins, like 5 pods of dolphins swimming in the beach near my house, right? And it was like that for 2 or 3 days. So again, the signs were very much aligned and it felt really right. But I was really, really, really hesitant, which is probably why this sweet property fell out of escrow 3 times before I got my hands on it. And there was nothing wrong with it, friends. It was really just waiting there for me to decide I was ready to bite. So it has not been the case with Cactus Blossom that I was always sure. It has not been the case with Cactus Blossom that I was plotting or planning or trying to figure things out. But what I was doing and what I continue to do in a way that has had the coolest outcome is I continued to listen. And I continued to ask for guidance, ask for support. And I continued to not to let my fearful mind guide the show, but listen more deeply to my soul, to my intuition, to my heart. And that is what intuition truly is, right? It's that deep heart-based knowing. It's that part of ourselves that can see the path. I often say the path of least resistance, the path towards joy, the path that is most aligned with where you truly know in your soul that you want to go. Our intuition can always show us that if we're willing to get out of the way and listen. And sometimes the guides say something like I did doing this retreat property was in some ways the best training for me to learn to listen more deeply because I didn't have any preconceived ideas of any of this or how it was supposed to be or what I wanted to do. Yeah, I got ideas along the line about some things that would be cool and fun, and we'll see if those things manifest. But a lot of it was my just trusting that if I was nudged in this direction repeatedly, and if the signs aligned, and if I tuned into myself, even at those moments when I was like freaking out, and my inner still voice said, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, keep doing it, keep doing it. This is the right way to go. That I would listen, that I would follow, and that I would allow. And as much as I love it when my intuition gives me answers like why, what, where, how. And sometimes it does, my friends. Sometimes it does in complete sentences, and sometimes it does in just little nuggets. And I take them all and I love them all. But like many human beings, sometimes I want the whole story in advance. Sometimes I want my intuition to tell me everything. Sometimes I want my intuition to tell me what I want it to tell me, right? Everything's going to be okay, Victoria. This is going to happen, Victoria. You are beautiful and perfect and wonderful, Victoria. I am, and so are you. Right? But sometimes we want our intuition to meet our egoic needs, and sometimes our ego just wants the answers now. But what is really oftentimes most delightful is when we can listen without those attachments. When we can listen without those attachments, because then and only then we can listen more deeply. And then and only then we can start to let our life and our higher guidance manifest that path before us that will reach our goals and stream in our joys in ways that I swear we could never, ever have expected. And that's what the journey of Cactus Blossom so far has been for me. It's been an exercise in surrender for sure. It's been an exercise in listening even when I've wanted to cover my ears and scream really loud so I did not hear what was being said, right? Because I was afraid. And it's also been an exercise in discovery because I am reminded again and again through this process how when I listen to my intuition more and more, it always points me in the right direction. It always does. And in ways that surprise me and delight me and excite me and gift me in ways that my sweet mind could never, ever, ever, ever have imagined. So that is one of the reasons why intuition is what is central to this show and why I come back to that topic again and again, because not just to teach you how to be more clairvoyant or more clairaudient or talk to your spirit guides or see auras. I mean, I can't teach you how to do that because I don't know how to do that, but I'm sure if you ask, the guides might be able to tell you a few clues, right? All of those things are fun and exciting, and I don't want to talk any of those down. But for me, the biggest part of my intuition is learning to follow those nudges, learning to align with my North Star, learning to listen more deeply, and in so doing, trust my soul, trust myself, and trust my life. And that is why all the topics that we talk about on the show, spiritual surrender, law of attraction, feeling joyous, having spirit guides, they all intersect and come together at this beautiful point called your intuition, your inner knowing, your inner guidance. And when we learn to allow trust, and follow that, that's when everything gets really, 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 in my estimation, delicious and good. And I have learned more and more that each and every time I listen and respond to those nudges, I am always, always satisfied with the results. More than satisfied, it's always just remarkable and amazing and joyous. So I really think that's all I wanted to share with you all today on this topic. We talk on the show all the time, the nuts and bolts of intuition, how to know the difference between intuition and fear, how to quiet that chattering mind, which often gets in the way of our inner knowing, how to sit with those strong feelings, right? For me, with Cactus Blossom, there was a lot of fear and a lot of doubt, right? For others, it can be anger or grief or sadness, right? Because in order to hear the call of our soul, we also have to allow ourselves to sit with and not resist the other stuff that comes up. I didn't necessarily believe it, even when I did, but I did have to allow it. So all of the things that we talk about on this show, fear not, are all going to help you to learn to align more with that inner knowing. And many of you are doing it all the time. So for homework, because, it's a podcast and I can give you that if I want to, and you have free will to do it or not, I would love for you to do a couple of things. Number one, in baby steps or big steps, but baby steps, are always a nice place to start. And I think I've given this homework before, but I'm giving it again. In baby steps, start to notice some places where you can listen and follow those intuitive nudges. And it does not have to be moving cross country. It does not have to be, starting a new business just because your guide said so. I've been doing this a while. But it can be, taking a different route to work, or turning on a certain TV show that you didn't think would like, or giving a second chance to a friend that you weren't sure about, but something tells you shouldn't let go, or any of those kinds of things. So you can look now at some opportunities to follow some of those things that you feel might be nudges, and to listen a little bit more deeply. And the other piece, and this one is really, really fun, and I think everybody can do this one. If you have maybe 10, 15, 20, maybe even 30 minutes, something in that range, get really quiet, get into like a good zone, and reflect on, and you can do this in a journal. You can do this, in a voice recorder. Journaling is always really nice, but I'll leave that to you. And see if you can't reflect on some of the times when you knew something and you didn't know how you knew it, but you listened. And notice in those cases how it turned out. And we all can find those examples of those little nudges, those little longings. And again, they're not always complete sentences, right? They're not always what we sometimes expect our guides to do, which is tell us exactly now what to do, how to do it, when to do it, where to do it, and why. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Oftentimes, they're just little nudges, little pushes in a certain direction. And when we get really quiet, we can actually see them more and more. So the first thing is to look at those things that you can recognize as your intuition, those things that you knew, but you didn't know how you knew them, and you followed them and they were right. And you can include some places too, right, when you didn't listen and you wish you had, because that's really good validation too. But mostly for this exercise, I'd like you to focus on the ones that fit, right? The times that you did listen, because that will reinforce for you that you do have this ability, that you do have this trust at least some of the time, and that where you focus on that and where you listen, right? That's going to grow. That's going to grow. It's going to give you faith. It's going to give you trust, and it's going to let you see that you've been doing this all along. The other thing that I would like you to do in this little journal that I now have you all journaling about is I want you to reflect on some of the biggest wins in your life, the biggest gains, the things that came into your life that have brought you the most joy. And I want you to write them down. I want you to write them down and really marinate in them and feel into it. The ones that you're most proud of, the ones that are most exciting, the ones that feel good. Now, your mind might be able to see the stream of events that created those for you. But I would like you, just for the sake of argument, And some of you may look at those and go, those were all my intuition, Victoria, duh. And if you are, then you've completed this exercise. But anyway, for most of us, right, the mind comes and takes credit and says, well, you did this and you did that. I promise you, anything in your life that you've attracted that has really brought you joy and really lit you up and really felt deeply satisfying, you attracted that through your inner wisdom, through those inner nudges, because that's really the only way to find the good stuff. And the mind will give you some actions, but a lot of times, mind-based activity that is not inspired and intuitively guided is sort of like, it's like coloring over the lines. It's like the blueprint, it's already there. And you're just kind of coloring in because your mind feels like it needs to do something, but that's not what's getting the job done. I hope that little metaphor made sense. Right? So reflect on all the amazing things that you have streamed into your life. And then imagine, just perhaps, that those things too were brought to you and you were guided towards experiencing them and attracting them from your intuition. Because I promise you, on the deepest level, that is the truth. Know, my friends, that we all have this great capability to listen, and wherever you are in the listening and trusting journey is just right. But take a couple seconds now just to reflect and recognize how beautifully your intuition has been working for you all the time, even if you may not have given it proper credit. Give it some credit now, and then take this last few moments to love yourself, because you are a rock star. You are a rock star. And your higher self loves you, and your spirit guides love you, and your intuition is always there waiting for you to tap in and let it guide you towards a maximally joyful and inspiring life. All right, so that's all I got. So much fun to talk about our namesake topic, intuition, and to give you a little glimpse too of how my process works and how I have learned more and more to follow those inner nudges and my inner guidance. And it can be that way for you too. If you like what you heard today, please, please, please go over to your podcast platform of choice. Scroll down to the bottom of the place where it says reviews and click on write a review and give us 5 stars and some really kind words, because it really, 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 really helps get the word out there. And share with your friends, and always, very most importantly, just keep listening, because I love doing this. I love connecting with you. And if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't get to talk into a microphone for 30 minutes one time a week. So I'm grateful to you. Hope this was helpful. Enjoy the rest of your day, and namaste. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you found joy, strength, inspiration, and clarity from today's episode. If you'd like to learn more and connect with an amazing group of like-minded souls, please join us over on Facebook in the Intuitive Connection Community Facebook group, where we explore these topics in deeper detail, have additional live teachings, and host Facebook Lives with our amazing guests. I hope to see you there. And of course, if you want to learn more about me or the work that I do, please check out my webpage, victoriashawintuitive.com. Thank you so much again, and namaste.